Right, I think we will get started and then I will let people in as we go if anyone joins. I don't want to keep you too long. So today's session, guys, is on creating SEO guidelines. It's essentially going to be about how with SEO there's certain things that you can follow no matter who you are or what you do within a business to ensure that you're helping towards search engine optimization. What I'm not going to do in this session is give you sort of chapter and verse of every single guideline and process to follow within SEO, because we would be here all day and that probably requires a more detailed document. But I'll give you all the sort of tips, top checklists and things that people can follow, and hopefully it will be a useful session. So what we're going to cover is, firstly, I'm going to just chat a little bit about how guidelines can improve your SEO success and efficiency in what you're trying to achieve, whether it's yourself trying to do it or you're doing it for somebody else. I'm going to go through some specific guidelines for teams that most likely can impact SEO. Bearing in mind, actually, sort of everyone within a business probably can impact SEO, but we'll go through specifically sort of content, social media, PR, and developers, and then go through some tips for small businesses. So the ones for like content and social media, they're all relevant anyway. But if you are a small business and you want to be able to just do something to support your SEO, there'll be some guidelines here on basically what you can do. And then also about keeping guidelines relevant. So if you have been on any of these sessions before, or if you read up on SEO, you'll know that search engine optimization is changing quite frequently. There's certain things that sort of stay the same, but in order to ensure the best possible chance of success, it's important to sort of stay up to date with what's changing. And if you do develop some guidelines, you need to ensure that they are up to date with what you're doing as well. So firstly, how can having guidelines and processes in place improve your success and efficiency? So primarily, anyone that inputs into your website should be following SEO best practices. The reason for that is because they'll be laying the groundwork for success in your visibility in search. So if you do have an SEO agency, if you do have a Nettle package and you're getting your SEO through that, that isn't the end, because that's, if there's other people contributing to the website, if you're putting things on your website, it's important to be like, if you're uploading images, for example, you could name that image and compress it before you upload it, and that will help with problems in the long run. So if people know what to do from the start, then there'll be less problems and less fixes to go back and do later on, and that then gives you more time to focus on like a more advanced optimization and things that will actually really push you forward in terms of what you're doing to help with your SEO success. Everyone does have a role to play in this. So just to reiterate, it's not just people that work in SEO that can impact your search performance. It's anyone in the business, I would say, whether you're a customer service person or whether you're everything. So you're a one-man band business and you do everything. Anything that you're doing can impact SEO. People often mistake SEO for just being the technical stuff on the website that people do, but there's so much more to it around what you're doing, how you're promoting your business online. There's so many different things. So I'm going to go through some of the guidelines for the different people. So it might be that you don't have a content team or a content person that writes stuff for your website, but it's worth knowing all of these tips anyway if you ever do work with content, a developer, or a social media person, for example, or an agency. So firstly, we're going to go through content. I have to apologise, there's not loads of pretty pictures and things like that in this presentation today, but there's good content nonetheless, I hope. But what I'm going to go through is these are some of the top guidelines for content. So I've said this many of times before, but this is for anyone that is writing content for your website. So be it if that's you, if that is someone else, or if it's the agency. All of these things apply to anyone that is writing content. That can be a blog article, or that could be your product page, your About Us page, your home page. Content is anything on your site, basically, that has copy. Always check the top ranking pages for the keywords that you're trying to rank for, because they are the best results to what the query is. So whatever is the top ranking pages for that search query, Google deems that to be the best result at this point in time. So if you don't look at those pages, you're doing yourself a bit of injustice there, because you're not finding the tips from what other people are doing when you could be. You're just trying to do it without any knowledge of what anyone else is doing and what you could be doing. Always, whenever you upload a new page to your website, or whenever someone does, always have an optimized title and meta description. That avoids the amount of websites we work on and we go to it and it says there's no meta description or title for about 200 pages, and you have to go and write every single one. It's really simple. If you have WordPress, you can use the Yoast plugin, which most sites have, and it gives you a title and a meta description already. But usually I would say it's best to try and optimize that as well. If you keep it to like your title to 55 to 65 characters, for example, then you're less likely to have it cut off on the search engine's results pages. So nice little tip there for when you're uploading content. Always use headings. So H2 headings are basically headings where you can like spit out the copy essentially. Ideally every 300 words, because it helps to break up copy. So a lot of the tips that are on here, so the H2s, the short digestible paragraphs, having bullet points and images and breakpoints to avoid large chunks of text. These are all about how you optimize for a mobile device. Because I guarantee if you look at the traffic coming to your website today, half, if not the majority of it, will be coming from a mobile phone. And it's really important to ensure that your content and your website reads well on a mobile. And if you check your site on a mobile now and just see like large chunks of text that people have to scroll in order to read, people aren't going to do that. People just skim read pages and skim read headings. So it's really important to make the site look good from a design perspective, and you need to think about how content fits into that. And it's not having large chunks of text with no sort of breakpoints and bullets and things like that. Also, internal and external links. So internal links are links that link from one page on your site to another page on your site. External links are links going out to other sites. These are really useful within SEO because they help search engines understand what your site is about and the relevance of your business. Call to actions. So no one ever remembers to include call to actions in what you're doing. But that is super important, because ultimately you've got a website because you want someone to take an action. So for every page or splitting out a page, you need to have call to action. So if you've got a really long page, you might have a call to action in the header, but you probably need another one midway through the page and then another one at the bottom of the page. Without making it look a bit too spammy, I would definitely include as many call to actions as are relevant in order to get people to take the action that you want. Obviously keywords, so ensuring that the keywords are included in the content. So you need to know your keywords, even if it's just yourself writing the content for your website. Know what your keywords are and include them without stuffing them too much. So use them naturally on the site. Avoid publishing thin content. So by thin content, what I mean here is you could have a page which is just a few hundred words and it's quite a short page. And if that page is relevant and useful to the user, then it's not necessarily deemed thin content. So if you were an e-commerce company and you have a product or a category page, that page might only need to be a few hundred words, because the main priority of that page is to list the products and to show the different products and categories that people can click through to. But if you're a financial services business and you have a service or a product like pensions that is, really considered purchase and people have to spend a lot of time thinking about it, having a really short, not in-depth page probably isn't going to cut it in order to get you to rank well or be deemed as useful. So I definitely have a look at those top ranking pages again and consider, are you going into as much depth as those pages? Because a very short piece of content probably isn't going to go into the depth required in order to rank well or to be competitive. So it's always worth considering whether the content you're posting is thin and does it actually go into the depth required to rank. And then authoring content. So whether or not you need to be an expert or you need to be somehow knowledgeable in your area to be able to post content on it. I wouldn't recommend trying to post content on things that you don't know about. If you are posting about things that you're not particularly an expert in, you definitely need to reference that source. So if you're talking about something to do with the NHS, like a health related matter, you should be referencing and sourcing the NHS as where you've got that information from, because they are a reputable source in that area. If you are the expert in that area, then you should author your content and say, I have written this and this is why I know about this area. And you can create a bio page. I'm sure there's someone in every business that knows what they're talking about, because you're ultimately, if it's your business or if it's someone's business, someone is going to know the topic, the niche or the industry quite well. So you need to be trying to author content and explain why you're the expert and why you'll be able to talk about that. That doesn't only help from an SEO perspective, but it also helps from a kind of trust perspective and a brand building perspective for people to know who is writing the content on the website. And it's not just blog articles that come into play here. If you do have a homepage or a service page, it's anything that references who the business are and who's at the business. So you could even just have an about page with all your employees and what they do in the company. That is relevant because it's showing people and it's showing search engines that you're telling people who is responsible for this website and the content on this website. So these are the tips for content. I could go on forever and I don't want to make everyone yawn too much, but these are the key things that I would say you can all do. And this is all very easy stuff. It's not difficult at all. So if you're doing anything on your content on your website, or if you have a copywriter doing stuff for you, send them this list and say, I want you to do all of this when you're writing this content. Social media. So we've had a session previously on social media. So a lot of this, if you've been to it, wouldn't come as a surprise to you, but it's all about sharing the content on social media, doing everything you can to promote your website and anything you have on your website on social media. You can also use your keywords in the posts that you use on social media. So often people think that your social channels and your website are very separate, but they're actually not. They're used by search engines. The search engines are crawling and finding your social profiles to try and understand more about your business and to link up. Who does this social profile link to? What website? What company is it? So it's really important to try and include your keywords, include a link to your website from your social media bios, and be encouraging people to share your content. I've said this before quite a few times as well, but if the same with call to actions, if you have an action or you want someone to do something, you kind of have to ask them to do it, otherwise they probably won't do it. So definitely encourage your followers to go to your website, share your content and do whatever the action you want them to take. Always include your call to actions as well on your social posts. So if you've got someone working, if you have someone working on your social media channel now, so on your Facebook page, I'd suggest going away and having a look at how often they actually ask people to come and get a quote or go to your website, because you need to be linking from the social channel to the website quite a lot, because that's the whole point of how you get people off social media onto your website and how you link it all up. You can also include your social profiles in your website footer. So I think a lot of websites do that, or include it somewhere that's prevalent on your site so that you're helping with that understanding. A lot of people do go to Facebook and Instagram or LinkedIn, social channels to find out more about a company before they buy or consider them. And also having the social sharing buttons on your content as well. So that should be really easy if you're on a CMS, like a content management system like WordPress, for example. A lot of it you can just add plugins or they're sort of installed automatically. So that's not difficult to do. But all of this helps search engines understanding of your business and how that relates to your social media channels. Again, I've got the NAP information there, so your name, address, and phone number. If you have any social media channels, make sure that information is on there and that it's accurate, because if it's not accurate, it's not going to help the understanding of your business and help you rank well for SEO. So these are the tips for social media, really simple ones. Again, anyone can do most of this. It's not hard, just always consider what you're doing on social, because that does impact SEO, not necessarily a direct ranking factor, but it will impact SEO. So developers, so this is probably one of the most important elements, I would say, because SEO, search engine optimization, often sort of goes over with what development teams do. So if you have a website developer, sometimes they'll hate SEO because they don't want to optimize for SEO, and sometimes they'll want to. So a lot of technical SEO work is also sort of development work as well. So if you do have a developer working on your website, it's important to ensure that they follow all of this technical SEO spiel that I've got on here, because it's really important to ensure that your website can be found by search engines. But the top tips here I've said is basically make sure you've got tracking on your site, make sure the developers install that, or even the SEO team. Some of this, like I said, some of this stuff can be done by SEO or it could be done by a developer. It depends on how you work. Make sure the site is secure, so make sure it's HTTPS. You can easily buy a security certificate through your domain provider that hosts your website. That's super important now. Obviously search engines are pretty much, Google is telling people now before they go to a website, are you sure you want to go here? It's not safe. So you really want to make sure you do have that, and it's not expensive at all. The robots.txt file, so if anyone doesn't know what that is, don't worry too much, because some of this, obviously this stuff is technical. This is probably the main thing that if you are managing your own website, you're not going to be able to do yourself necessarily. But the big thing to understand with the robots.txt file is this is where you can accidentally block your whole site from being shown in Google. So you need to check that this disallow is not in. It doesn't matter if you have disallow in there, but if you have the disallow and then this / it means that basically I don't want my site to be shown at all in search engines. So if you do have your robots.txt file, just check it and make sure that this isn't in it. You will see other stuff in there, because there'll be things that you want to hide from search engines, but just ask someone to have a look at this for you if you do need some help. It's important to check that Google can render and load a page. So you might have a mobile friendly site, but there might be elements of your website that are really hard to load and really hard for like a crawler basically to access. So that is something that will need support from development, but I would definitely have a look at what can be fetched and rendered from Googlebots. Have a look at status errors. So these are basically errors that mean people can't get onto your website. So they're going to a broken page. There's an error because your site's too slow, for example, and you need to increase the server space. So a lot of different errors that can happen. Make sure you've got 301 redirects to fix broken links. Staging sites. So some bigger websites and even some smaller websites will have a staging site, and that's where a developer makes all the changes before they push them live. Often staging sites accidentally get indexed by Google, and then you have a duplicate site and you have a site that's not ready being indexed by Google. So development need to ensure that they are not having the staging site indexed. Site speed, spoken about that quite a lot, but that's super important. Always consider site speed. So if you have anyone doing development work for you, you don't even have to know what you do, but just say to them, can you make sure you're considering site speed and what you do? Because it is really important, and often development will do something and then SEO will have to then go away and fix site speed after, when actually if you consider site speed from the start, when the web development starts, then we won't necessarily have to go away and fix speed later down the line. Canonical tags. So without going into too much detail, this helps avoid duplicate content. So it basically just helps with the quality of your site. So every page should have a canonical tag, ideally. You don't need to know the detail of how you do this, but there is a section within most content management systems called canonical tag, and you can usually just add the URL of the page in there. It can get a bit more complex if you have a lot of similar pages, but we won't go into the detail of that, but a developer will know what a canonical tag is. And obviously making sure SEO friendly URLs, so making sure your URLs don't have underscores, and that there's not like loads of uppercase words in there, and things like question marks and stars and asterisks and things like that. And also that structured data is implemented correctly. So structured data is additional code that can be added to your website to help search engines show richer results in the search engine results pages. All of this is technical stuff, so don't worry, and I know I've gone through it really quickly, but if it doesn't make sense, this is why it's a guideline for a developer. So this is why it's something that you take a screenshot of, or go back and watch the session afterwards, send this to the developer or the SEO team and say, I want you to make sure you're doing all of this, if you do have someone that can do it for you. PR, so PR is essentially anything that's like, I suppose, promotional of your business. So if you do have someone that is doing PR for you, often smaller companies won't, so they might do things themselves. So you might, if you're a local business, you might go to the local media and tell them about something that you're doing, so like a great free event or a charity thing, and they will post it on there if they think it's newsworthy. That is PR basically. So if you are a small company, you're probably just doing your own PR naturally. But if you do have someone doing PR for you, or as such a sort of link acquisition, I suppose, for you, then these are a few things that you should follow. So if you have a press release, always make sure website links are being included in it. Or if you're asking the local media to talk about something that you're doing, always give them a link to your website. Make sure you're targeting relevant businesses or relevant publications. So if you're a building company, target construction websites to get some PR coverage. Don't target a porn website, completely irrelevant. So make sure you're targeting relevant websites to your website. Using keywords, again, so keywords can be used anywhere, not just on your website, to help people understand your business. So you can use them in the press releases. You can ask PR, so if there's someone that's working on your PR, you can ask them to research and advise on the type of content that journalists would link to. So by this, I mean that if you have a really great story, or if you have something, you think you have great content on your website, you might not have great content according to a journalist. So if you want to get your website published on constructionnews.co.uk or on the local post or something, you might not, if it's not really a great piece of content. So you need to try and get some advice, or even you could probably research yourself to find out the sorts of pieces of content or pages that journalists will link to. You can also sign up to reactive media platforms. So this is relatively easy, but it's quite time consuming. So there's a platform called Harrow, which basically you can sign up to, and you sign up with it's about like the topic or the industry that you're in, and Harrow will send you like daily emails basically saying about what requests journalists have for stories in that area. So they might, if you are in the construction industry, for example, Harrow might send something saying, we're looking for to speak to a construction manager on X, Y, and Z. And then if you think you have a story, or if you think you can talk about it, you get in touch with them and basically say, this is my press release, or this is my story. So there's lots of options for like reactive media platforms. And by reactive, I mean a request comes through, you see that something is happening there and then, a journalist wants something and you have to get on it right there and then. It's not a planned in thing, it's you get the email and you go out with it straight away. Always boast about and link to your media coverage. So if you, not even just media coverage, so if you're getting nice testimonials, nice reviews, anything online that talks positively about your business, boast about it, put it on social, put it on your website, do whatever you can to expand the positive reach of positive stories about your company. Really, really useful from a sort of brand, company, trust building perspective. Again, monitoring media mentions. So if anyone's mentioned your company online and you find that or you see it, try and monitor them. There's quite a few different ways you can do that. You can set up Google alerts, or you can just Google your company name. There's a few different tools to do it as well, but some of them cost, but I definitely recommend setting up Google alerts and just generally like Googling your company as well and seeing if people are talking about it. And you can request a link from that mention as well if they haven't linked to your company. Always monitor the sentiment of coverage that you're getting. So from a PR perspective, I think everyone probably knows a bit about like crisis management. So if there's a bit of a crisis in the business, all of the massive companies will know about this, and something happens, someone goes out with something on social media and then they have to like manage it because it's had a really bad backlash or something. It won't be as big as that for a lot of businesses, but if you're getting a lot of negative comments online about your company, that sort of sentiment can impact you from an SEO perspective. So you need to do as much as you can to increase the positive sentiment and the positivity of what people and how people are talking about your company. That's enough on PR. So small businesses. So if you are a small business and you're a local business, it's highly likely that you do your own PR, you do your own blogs, you are the marketing team, but you also probably don't have much budget or time. I mean, this isn't me personally, but I can imagine, and I know a lot of small business owners that just do not have the time to do everything or the budget to do everything. So I'm going to go through a few of the basics that you just really need to try and get right if that is you. A Google My Business page, so make sure you've got that page set up and you've optimized it. Make sure you've got Google Analytics and Google Search Console installed. A couple of these things you might need some help with, but once you've got them, then at least you've got them, and you might want some help with technical SEO. But these are things that you could technically do yourself and get a little bit of help with. Check that you've got your site is indexed. So you can check this. The easiest way to check it is by doing something called a site command. So if you search site and then a colon and then your domain in Google, it should show you all of or most of the pages that are showing from your website in Google. If you don't see any pages come up, it's highly likely that your website is not indexed. So you'll need to get that indexed. But you can also see this in the coverage section of the Google Search Console tool. You'll want to check that your site is mobile friendly. You want to create a logical website structure. So by that I mean, got your homepage, what other pages do you need on your site to ensure you're covering everything that you need? So all your service pages, for example, if you work in quite a few different locations, you might want a different location page. You need to do your keyword research to understand what keywords you should be using, and you need to start asking for reviews. So as soon as you set up that Google My Business page, start trying to get reviews. There's a lot of support out there for local businesses to get Google reviews. So I believe you can put up a sticker in your company to ask for Google reviews. You can put actually that up within the business if you have a physical location, or you can get a shortened URL which you can put on social media on your website to try and get those reviews. And you can use incentives to get them in as well. So from a small business perspective, if you're doing your own content, the most simplest things that you can do to optimize your content are making sure that you have a page, like one page for each of your products, each of your services, and each of your locations. Each page does need to be unique, but I would say from a sort of minimum perspective, try and have a page for each service or location, because then that goes into point 2, where you would map your keywords to each of these landing pages. So for example, if you offer piano lessons in quite a few different locations across the UK, you might have a piano lessons Manchester page and then a piano lessons London page, or potentially even go deeper than that if you need to. But you do need to make sure that each page offers unique value and that you're not just rewriting everything and changing a couple of words. So you have to have a separate page for each of your products or services. But there are always going to be questions, and people are going to say, oh, well, this service is quite similar to this one, so should it be on the same page or should it not? That kind of thing you do need to probably discuss on a case-by-case basis. But from a sort of top line perspective, have separate pages and put enough content on them. Obviously look at your competitors. So what are the top ranking pages doing? What do they have? And just try and copy but improve what they're doing. So don't copy it, but use it as inspiration for what you should do. And also be regularly publishing unique and useful blog content. And by me saying regularly, I don't mean weekly or monthly. You know, in an ideal world, you might post a little bit more regularly. But if you're going to be posting something for the sake of it and it's going to be a really short piece that doesn't add any value, then it's probably not worth doing. So I do think you need to be posting content, because people often look at your blog or your area and it will help search engines crawl your site. But don't do it for the sake of doing it. It has to have unique value and there has to be a reason for doing it, and it needs to be useful. So don't just post 200 words because you want to post a blog post. It needs to actually be targeting either a keyword or a particular area for your business. So if you're seasonal, you might do a post around Christmas or something. Also, with the content side of things, you know, if you are an expert within the business, you can write content. If you're not a great writer, then I would just write it and ask someone else to have a look over it before you post it. On-page optimization. So these are the things that you can do when you upload content or change your pages. So you've got your titles, meta descriptions, and header tags. Anyone can really do them within a content management system. They should be quite easy to do. There's usually fields that you can do it, and you can just change a copy to be a heading tag. You can name and compress your images before you upload them. So for example, this image on the left-hand side of this presentation is some sort of building blocks that says metadata. So if I was to upload that onto my site, I would probably name it something like, I don't know, child's building blocks metadata or something along those lines that's descriptive of what the image is. So don't just upload your image where it still says something like Adobe, where you've bought it from or something. Try and name it first and compress it using a tool like Smush or something like that, because or there's another one called Tiny PNG. There's loads of tools out there, but if you compress your images before you upload them, then it will help with your site speed. So it will mean that we don't have to go back and then re-upload all the images and make them smaller later on. There is a plugin as well on WordPress that can do it automatically for you, so that's another option as well. Adding internal links between your pages. So if you're creating a new page, work out where you can link from that page to one of your other pages, and always be optimizing your navigation and your call to actions. So I always bang on about call to actions, but have them on your site. And your navigation is your top sort of navigation links and your footer. So optimize them, make sure they link to the most important pages, and make sure they go to pages that your users would want to go to, or your customers. Offsite optimization. So most simple things and guidelines of what you can do here is, if you have any suppliers or business associations, ask them to link to your site. I'm sure everyone has, relationships, direct relationships with like suppliers or people that they work with, like, a case study or something. Ask them to link to you. Creating those relevant citation listings online. So this could be local citation listings, or it could be niche listings, so something relevant to your business, so the industry that you're in. But citation listings are just essentially listings online that mention your business and include your business information. So even your social media profile kind of counts as a citation listing, because it's the more things online about your business and the more correct information online about your business helps search engines understand your business, and that you're there, you're an active business, and all the information online is correct. And obviously be sharing your content on social media. So I had that in the social media guidelines, but this is just specifically if you are a small, a one-man band type situation, you can just share your blogs or share your website pages on your channels. And generally just promote your business in every way you can. So biggest thing, one of the things that's so important within SEO today is like promotion of a business and building a brand. There are so many companies out there, even big companies and smaller companies, that actually don't really do much for SEO, but they've built such a strong brand that actually they're doing really well and they're ranking really well. So one of the examples which I had on a previous session was Greggs. Quite naturally, but they obviously sell the vegan sausage rolls that are really popular. And if you search vegan sausage rolls, Greggs ranks really highly after the recipes, but they don't do any optimization. They just rank because everyone knows Greggs for vegan sausage rolls. So it's similar for other businesses. If you build a name for yourself and you promote yourself as much as you possibly can, actually that will go a long way, as well as doing the on-site optimization. So promoting your business any possible way you can. And then just a point here, I suppose, I've given all of these tips of things you can do. So you can, what you can do on your social media, what you can do with your content and all of that. But from an SEO hygiene standpoint, you should really be regularly finding and fixing issues and errors on your site. And this is where you might require support from an agency or from someone that knows what they're doing. It's a bit like having a car and you needing to have maintenance on your car. The more you use it, the more it's going to need fixing and the more maintenance it's going to need. So if you're driving down the motorway 100 miles every day to work and back, your car's probably going to need someone to look at it more often. Whereas similar situation on your website, if you're making changes quite a lot, there's probably going to be more errors. So you might accidentally change a link and then that link breaks, and then it breaks other things. So this is where regular audits, regular fixing comes into play, just to make sure you don't get your website in a really bad state. So I definitely recommend having some sort of regular checks, depending often on how many changes you're making to your website. But also, it's not just the changes you make and the changes that happen to your website. Obviously, search engine optimization changes, competitors change their websites, Google changes the rules. So all of this requires some regular maintenance, as well as just things like content and social media and all of that. So I think we're pretty much nearly there now, which is good. But updating guidelines is obviously really important. So as I've previously said just a minute ago, so SEO is always changing. So one of the marketing practices that just doesn't really stay still, and that's unfortunate because you have to keep up to date with everything all the time. So because it is changing, guidelines need to be kept up to date. So a lot of what I've mentioned here today, so some of the generic things like share your content on social media, that doesn't really change. That's still important, but there are going to be elements of technical SEO and elements of certain things that we recommend that will change over time. So if you do have guidelines, or if you are following some sort of guidelines, they will need to be up to date. So I might want to, if you save this presentation might need to be updated in a year's time, just to be more relevant to what's happening then. But really, for me, I just wanted to give you the top things that I think you should be focusing on from a sort of guidelines and what you should be following perspective over the next sort of year, this year and going forward at the moment. But this is just based on my experience within SEO. But the top 4 that I have here are slightly different from the bottom 4, and they're slightly more specific, I suppose. So the top ones we have like user experience and site speed. So they are becoming more important. I've said before, you won't always have a perfect site speed. You won't always have the fastest site in the world, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you're not going to rank well, but actually having a quicker site is more about your user experience than Google knocking you down a few positions because your site isn't really fast. So you're not going to see position 1 being the fastest site, position 2 being the second fastest site, position 3 in Google being the third fastest site. It doesn't work like that because there's so many other factors. So your site doesn't have to be the fastest to rank position 1, but actually the slower your site is and the worse of an experience people have on there, the more likely they are to leave the site or not take the action you wanted. So it's all about, and user experience isn't just about site speed, it's about people being able to find what they want on your website. So if people want to call you and they can't find your telephone number, that's super annoying. I find that really annoying when I just want to get in contact with someone and I can't find an easy way to contact them. So just simple things like that impact how well people can navigate and how they can find what they want on your website. Searcher intent. So this is about, are your keywords and is your content on your website meeting the intent of what people want? So for an example here, if you wanted to target a keyword which was like compare plumbers, so imagine you were like a plumber comparison website, and or you wanted to be, and you targeted the compare plumbers keyword. If someone then came to your landing page and you gave them absolutely nothing at all to help them compare, so you didn't give them a comparison table, you didn't give them anything, any information about comparison, you're probably not meeting the intent of why someone clicked on your site in the first place. It's really important to understand what people are looking for when they come to your website or when they type a query into Google. Again, here, the best way you can find out what intent is by looking at the top ranking pages, because they are the pages that are probably best meeting the intent of the user. Original content, this has always been a thing, but it's more important today, I would say, with so much different content on the web today, and for everyone uploading blogs and blog posts every single day, how do you get a word in edgeways? It's about having the original and the best unique content that you can possibly have on your site. And then these last 4 are all really quite similar, but branding, reputation, authority, and relevancy. So that's what I've mentioned about how you promote your business as much as you possibly can. You don't have to be an SEO person to do any of this. It's just general marketing. So really, half of SEO today is just about promotion and general marketing of your business and just good business practice. So good customer service, getting good reviews, responding to people on social media, doing everything you can to make sure people are talking positively about you online. And then you have the more technical stuff, which needs to be done on your website as well. But actually, the important things going forward, as well as that, as well as the technical site speed experience side of things, is about building up a company or a brand that people respect and that is authoritative and has a good reputation. So, what we have covered today. So basically, what we've gone through is how guidelines can improve your efficiency and what you're doing. If you don't follow anything that we've gone through today, then all you'll end up doing is, when you decide that you want to have a good organic presence in search results, you'll speak to Nettle or you'll speak to an SEO person or an agency, and they'll say, well, you've got hundreds and hundreds of issues with your website because you haven't been doing anything. So try and just follow some basic guidelines, because then it means there's less to do and there's less to fix in the long run. Also, obviously, everyone has a role to play. So if you do have a package with us, or if you are working with someone on your website, actually, if someone says to you, oh, well, I just upload blogs for you, or I just do your social media, then actually, no, they do have a role to play in SEO, and they should follow the guidelines you give them to help with SEO, because otherwise, if you're just trying to do it yourself, or you're just relying on your agency to do it, that's not really enough, because the SEO agency or within your SEO package, we can't run your business for you. We can't go out and get all your reviews. We can't manage all the negative sentiment about your company online. We can't do everything. So literally everyone does have a role to play, and it's about following the recommendations and following the guidelines, no matter who you are working within a company. And obviously guidelines do need to be kept up to date, because things do change over time. Right, we are finished, which is a pretty good timing. Just in case we might have a few questions, but I just wanted to say, at the moment, this is the final session that we have planned in. We will be doing more sessions in the future, so do let us know if there's anything particular that you're really interested in sort of learning about. But what I'd recommend doing after this is, when you have a moment, is going back and watching some of the sessions again. They're all uploaded on the SEO Academy page, and you can re-review them. You'll probably get bored because I'll be in a lot of them, but try and re-watch them, maybe even take a few screenshots of certain things that were really useful, because we always mention in these sessions useful tools or useful tips. And I often find that sometimes you come away from things like this really inspired, and you feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to go away and do all of this, and then you just get really bogged down by day to day and don't do it. So just watch them again and try and get a few tips when you do have a minute to work on your website or to follow some of the best practices. But watch this space, because there will be more things coming up in the future. So I'm just going to see if anyone has any questions. If you do want to, feel free to come off mute, but that doesn't often happen. So not too many questions. So we do have a question about, what is a canonical tag? What does it do, and what does the tag need to make it effective? So a canonical tag is basically just a bit of code. So a bit of code that you add to the page that basically tells search engines, this is the main page, this is the primary page, and this is the important page. So an example of where you might need to use canonical tags is if you had three versions of a page that were very, very similar, and you needed all those versions of that page. For example, if you were taking people to the page from email or from PPC, and you don't always need different versions of a page, but sometimes people need very similar pages, but they need loads of different versions of it. And the issue with having quite similar versions of your page is that search engines will see that as duplicate content, which you can get penalized for, and which can negatively impact your SEO performance. So all a canonical tag does is basically tells search engines, this is the page I want you to rank. This is my important page. So it's just good practice to have this canonical tag on every single page. The only time you would need to put a canonical tag to a different page is if one page really isn't important, but actually you want to show what is the important page. It's super hard to explain canonical tags. Please Google it. Google will probably explain it better than me. But it's just a useful thing to have. More important if you are having loads of similar pages on your site for a specific reason. If you don't have that, then I wouldn't worry too much. Does Nettle provide an SEO review service? I think, do you mean they're like managing reviews and responding to them? Not at the moment, but it's definitely something I maybe to look out for. But I'd also recommend that it's always worth trying to respond to reviews yourself, because you might know how to respond to the reviews as the business owner or the person that works at the business. What we can do at Nettle as part of our SEO is, if we do see a lot of negative things online about your business, or if we do see that you don't have many reviews or they're quite negative, we would pick that up and recommend it as something that you focus on. So we've got the links to the previous sessions here and where this one will be uploaded as well. A few direct messages. If you do want to speak separately, feel free to maybe, I'll just stay on at the end for 5 minutes in case anyone does want to stay on and chat once everyone else has left. Or you can email SEO@nettle.com and we can have a separate chat, or call if you like, because I think a couple of people have said that. Yes, so if you email SEO@nettle.com, got a few direct messages about some questions. In regards to the pictures on your site, do I name them after the product itself? Yes. So if you are uploading a product and you have a picture of the product, name the picture what the product is. If it's a specific product name that isn't relevant, so if you can, it'd be good to try and include your keyword in the description, but you can't upload 10 images on one page, all including the keyword, just for the sake of it. So if you have a product that is, I don't know, for example, if it's like children's hats and you're uploading some pictures of your children's hats, you might upload child's hat blue floral, for example, child's hat blue and spotty. So describe the image. Don't just try and stuff keywords in there for the sake of it. Just describe what the image is when you upload it. A couple of people saying that they are the marketing department of a small business, which is often the case. Which WordPress plugin would you recommend for picture resizing and renaming? So I would probably recommend Smush. It's quite easy. So I think the free version, you can basically, it like automatically does it for you when you upload images, or you can do like 50 at a time. So if you want to go away and do it now, you can download that plugin and do 50 in one go. Or if you want to do it beforehand, before you upload images to your website, you can use the tool called TinyPNG, or there's a few other ones as well. Where would I find the robots.txt file? So if you type in your website domain in Google and then put a /robots.txt. So for example, don't know if this is going to work, but if I did nettle.com, it might be like, just writing it in here now. Or you can Google robots.txt checker, and there will be a tool that will come up called technicalseo.com, I believe, and it'll be from a company called Merkle. And all you do is just input your website URL and it will show you your robots file, basically. Is there something similar to Google My Business but for non-profit charities? Personally, I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't answer that question. I don't see why you can't use Google My Business for not-profit and charities. So I would say use it if you can, but that might be one to have a look into. It depends what you're trying to do, I suppose, with the charity and how you're trying to promote them and how you're trying to get business. If you're trying to rank organically from an SEO perspective, then I think it's worth thinking about how you can promote the charity more through different websites and different companies. Might not be a Google My Business specific thing, but anyone can have a Google My Business page, I believe. I find it hard to come up with keywords without repeating them in my headings, which makes it look dull and repetitive. Is there specific training for how to create keywords and to use them for your landing pages, and which words Google picks up? So you don't have to use just the same keyword. So if you offer, just trying to think of an example, if you offer car insurance, say you could call that car cover or something. So you can use synonyms or relevant similar keywords to what the product or the service is. You don't have to just use that keyword. Obviously using that keyword will help, but if you have quite a long page, or if you have quite a lot of content on that page, I definitely recommend not just using the same keyword over and over again. I can't think of a tool off the top of my head, but it's almost like if you search for synonyms of my keyword or something along those lines, you'll find a way and different ways of how to rephrase your keyword that's just the same word but just said differently, basically. I don't think I explained that very good. Would product SEO be the same as normal SEO? We have a number of websites that only sell and they'd like to improve their rankings. So some of the elements, so a lot of the best practices within SEO are the same, but actually some things will be different. If you are, so product SEO, I suppose, would be deemed e-commerce SEO. There are some things that are different, and it's the same with like local SEO as well. So you've got like local SEO, you have international SEO, and then you have like e-commerce SEO. You could even go as far as financial services SEO, because there's all different ranking factors are of different importance within different industries sometimes. So I would say for like an e-commerce website where you're selling products, things like site speed might be more important, or how many products you have in stock. So if you're selling products on your website and you only have 2 products in stock for baby clothes, but another website has 20 products in stock, Google will look at how many products you have in stock and probably rank the page that has more products in stock. So there are different elements that you need to optimize. And also from a product perspective, you need to optimize your like descriptions and things like that. So product pages have quite a standard way of positioning themselves. So you have a picture of the product, you have some reviews of the product, you have a description of the product, you might have additional features and information. Amazon does it really well for products, so have a bit of a look at what sort of Amazon does and how they give information about products. But you could definitely Google something like how to optimize for product pages for SEO, how to optimize category pages for SEO. All of those things will help you from a perspective of if you are particularly trying to rank products or product pages that you're selling online. Right, I think that's all of the questions now. If you do have any more questions, just email us at seo@nettle.com and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. I'll stay on for 5 minutes just in case anyone wants to stay and ask an additional question, but otherwise thank you for joining, and please go and rewatch these sessions back and take a look at some of the guidelines or the tips that we've given over the past, God, I don't know how many months it's been that we've been doing these for, but feel free to go and watch them back. Thanks, everyone.